What is good, bros and bras? And this is your boy Vengeful Wilberg here, and this is a special treat for you guys because this is the first ever video of its kind, because this is a podcast. This is the New World Podcast, and you're going to see more of these across the web real soon. And so why don't we go ahead and get things rolling? So if you have not seen the title of this video, it is about a special manga that was slept upon, and I am very interested in this manga. I literally grinded reading this because I was so intrigued, and we are talking about the Berserk Manga, and the discussion that we're going to have is going to be about what makes this manga good. Why should you not sleep on this? And I have the Berserk God, Ali Double G. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, my boy?
What is up, everybody? My name is Ali G. If you don't already know me as the Berserk God, I don't know what you do know me as, because that is all I am. Berserk, live and breathe, eat and sleep all day, every day. So that is why I'm here with Vengeful Wilberg on this video to talk about Berserk and answer any questions that he has.
Oh, yes. Very good. And here's a very interesting tidbit. This is a fun fact about my boy Ali here. I had no idea who Ali was a long time ago. He was actually a subscriber on my channel and still is currently to this very day. I had no idea that he had a channel. And then I came across it. I actually noticed that he had one. I took a look at it, and boy oh boy does he have a lot of Berserk videos. And so that is why he is here with me, just to elaborate, because Ali just said that. I don't know why I said that. I just felt like I had to say it. But yes, let's get on with this podcast. And so here is the first question, my dude, because you're the one that actually got me into actually reading it low key. I read it last year over the summer, but I kind of like I just kind of fell off the wheel a bit because there was a lot going on. But the first chapter was an Omega Shenron surprise for me. I know that sounds crazy, but before we get into the nitty gritty, why don't you go ahead and give us like a brief summary of what Berserk is all about, kind of like a quick synopsis, if you will.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't read Berserk or gotten into Berserk, Berserk in short is basically about a man named Guts who was born in a pool of blood, like at corpses, and ever since he was a child he lives and breathes war. He's been battling ever since he was a child, and then throughout the stages of his life he ends up meeting the Band of the Hawk, and then once he meets the Band of the Hawk he meets characters like Griffith and Casca, and then his journey with them and the struggles he goes through with them lead to other events that ultimately bring him to what he is now, a broken man who is trying his best to get revenge on the person that wronged him. So without spoiling too much, that is Berserk in a nutshell. It really is something that you have to experience for yourself in order to truly understand its greatness.
Oh yes, very nice quick synopsis there. Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin when it comes to the journey that I had actually reading it, because I just was reading it non-stop and it was very engaging for me. What I want to go ahead and talk about for starters is like what drew me in to Berserk, right? So for me, when I read it, like I'm a big junkie when it comes to the story. I mean, I love action and manga, anime, what have you, but the story has to be engaging enough for me to actually get into it. And the way they introduced this dude, they introduced him in the most, I don't know what yes,
savage.
That's the perfect word. He was a total savage. The things that he did, I'm trying so hard to, keep the spoilers away, but the first couple pages shocked me. it shocked me so much to the point where I was literally cracking up laughing because it was so unexpected. And as I was reading and seeing the crazy things that this man has done, and keep in mind, Guts is human, and the things that I have seen, I'm like, wow, how is he doing this so quick? I mean, like, what the frick is going on? And then something told me that this was more of a foreshadowing of what's to come, because, like, there's no way a main character is that ridiculous in the first chapter. And it turns out that's what happened. And there were and here's the thing that was running through my mind the entire time. Okay, what made this man the way he is? What made him like that? And that was the question that I asked myself, and I used that question to kind of like to motivate and encourage my desire to continue reading, to find out what made Guts what he is. And then when you see it, it's like, holy crow biscuit. See, I'm trying very hard to prevent from cussing. So, because it's a new thing out there on YouTube, guys. If you don't know that, you could wind up getting your channel becoming more like age restricted due to the kind of wording. I mean, they're really vague about it, but if
gotta be as safe as possible.
The commentary sounds weird, just think of it as some funny random thing. Okay. So here's the thing that I want to mention. Like, where was my thoughts? Oh yes, about what made Guts the way he is. And when I saw what made him the way he is, and I made the connections, like connected the dots, like those coloring books where you connect the dots and you color them in. I literally had feels for this character. At first, when I was looking at him, this dude's just freaking crazy. This doesn't make any sense. But then when you see what happened, it's like, dang, that is...
Of course he's crazy.
This is the thing that blew me about Berserk. For me, it was like, when I look at this series is very dark. Extremely. Exactly. You read my mind. See, great minds think alike. Extremely dark. It kind of reminds me of the Fist of the North Star. And
oh yes.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the dude that actually was the dude responsible for creating this manga, if I pronounce his name correctly, the name Kentaro Miura. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I think. That's how I believe you pronounce it. Yeah.
And he was from the Fist of the North Star generation, and it kind of makes sense as to why this series is so dark. Because, like, if you've seen Fist of the North Star, it was kind of like a more apocalyptic type of theme. And
I've never seen it, but like the aesthetic of Fist of the North Star reminds me of this a lot, especially like the main. Not design, but like physique of the main character in Berserk and Fist of the North Star is somewhat similar when you think about it. Both muscly ass men, just like rampaging and murdering people.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. And so it was funny when I was reading Berserk, right? And I went back and I just jumped on the internet to research some stuff, look at a few things. And it's crazy how dated Berserk actually is, because like, I noticed that they said there that this was released, there was a prototype of Berserk that was actually released in 1988. It's freaking crazy. And so it kind of gives you an idea that, yes, this was from back in the day, and it's like, this has some history. So, here's my question to you. What is the thing that drew you into the world of Berserk?
Well, the thing that drew me into Berserk is I really find the whole concept of like violence and stuff, like I like stuff like that. I like when it has like serious subject matter and it's like gruesome in sexual and violent ways. I like when I see stuff like that. Like, I watched Game of Thrones before this, and Berserk, it's always been one of my watch list shows. Like, I have a bunch of shows that I have, like, oh, I plan to watch this, I plan to watch that, and, you know, all those days when I was a youngin' watching Watch Mojo top 10s, and it's like, Berserk is the #1 badass in anime. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm gonna have to watch that one day. So then I decided I'm gonna watch Berserk, and then when the time came that the game came around, and I saw External Flash post a video on the trailer, I'm like, maybe now is a good time for me to get into the manga so I can cover the game. And that's exactly what I did. I got into the manga, and then I watched the 1997 anime, and then the movies following that after I read the Golden Age arc in the manga. So yeah.
Oh snap. Okay, now here's a random question that I never even thought of, but I was curious as to why you made this connection. How is the Game of Thrones like similar to Berserk? Is it just because of the violence, or is there a little more to it than that?
Well, the actual story of Game of Thrones and Berserk they're nothing in the same, but I always link them together because Berserk just reminds me of Game of Thrones, because it's in that it would, if they had to signify what like point in time that both take place, they both somewhat take place in the same time. I know they're fictional worlds and they don't really have like specific time frames, but if we had to pinpoint what time they took place, they're both in what I call the same era. While Game of Thrones is hierarchies, kings and queens battling each other, while at the same time dragons and zombies over the place. Berserk is just like that. It's just they don't focus on the whole kings and queen aspect of it. We focus on our friend the Black Swordsman going through the trials, fighting all these monsters that are in his wake. That's why I always compare the two, because I find that they're both in a similar universe, but not necessarily a similar story.
I see what you're saying. To piggyback off what you were saying, it's like, in a briefer way, like a shorter way of putting it, it's like you're saying basically they're both from a similar era, even though they're not, kind of like more like medieval times kind of thing,
Medieval
kind of
is
like that
perfect
kind of era.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, because you know how in the Golden Age arc it's like, you know, they're in a kingdom, they're all knights, and they're like fighting wars and stuff. So yeah, I mean, Berserk it's more ahead of Game of Thrones, but I find that they're close enough to be compared in that sense.
Okay, now that, since we're on the subject of like medieval times, because I know we're trying to prevent spoilers here. Like that's probably one of the tougher things about doing a video like this, is potential spoilers and such. Okay, how about, because this is something I thought about when I was actually reading Berserk, and they was talking a whole lot about conflict between commoners and royalty, especially when it comes to the main antagonist known as Griffith.
Yes.
Did I pronounce that
Yeah,
right?
you did.
So how does that tie in together? This whole concept of class and Griffith's goal.
Well, you're saying how does Griffith's goal tie in with commoners and the hierarchy of aristocrats fighting each other? Is that what you're asking?
Repeat that again.
Are you saying that like Griffith's goal is his like all-time goal? Are you asking how that ties in with the trials between aristocrats and like commoners? Is that what you're asking, or are you asking that in comparison?
Yes.
Okay. So
yes, we're not talking about comparisons. We're just talking about Berserk in general now.
Well, Griffith's goal in life, it might be somewhat bigger than this, based on his personal beliefs, but he has said that his goal in life is to have a kingdom. He wants to have his own kingdom, and he wants to rule his own place. So he's trying to move up in the ranks when it comes to in the Golden Age arc. Like Griffith is the leader of the Band of the Hawk, and he's using the power he has in war to up his status in the hierarchy. And that becomes an issue when people get jealous of Griffith, and that's how the chain of reactions of events unfold in the Golden Age arc. But that is Griffith's main goal, and that is his main drive from the beginning of the Golden Age arc, and that is why he does what he does.
Very interesting. Like, I would love to dab more into that, but then there's more spoilers. Don't want to spoil too much.
We can talk about stuff, and then we can say, okay, now it's time for spoilers, and then, we'll talk about the spoilers. So we can have a pre-talk for people that don't know Berserk and want to get into it, and then for people that do know Berserk and want to just discuss all the recent stuff that's happening, then we can have a section for that as well.
Yeah, or maybe save that for another video altogether.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So maybe we'll just save it for that, so that whoever's watching, if they never seen it, they're not completely spoiled. Because spoilers suck for some people. But that was an excellent idea. So yes, potential Berserk content on the way. Discussion format is definitely going to happen again. Hype.
Yeah.
So here's another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is kind of I kind of already talked about what really shocked me about Berserk, and this is going to lead into another question that I feel is very critical.
Okay.
See, now I already said what shocked me with Berserk was what a total salve Guts is.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there was another thing that definitely came to a bit of a surprise, and that was the what's the word here? The amount of cake. In the amount of marshmallows that I have seen.
Marshmallows in the cake.
And so I mean this is that really surprised me, and that's going to lead into something else. Interesting questions is going to correlate to this, but I want to know, what is that one thing that really shocked you about Berserk? Is it the same thing, or do you have something a little different to add to that?
Really, it's kind of the same thing. What really shocked me about Berserk is that even in comparison to Game of Thrones, when it comes to its nudity and sexual suggestive content, it's very serious with it, while at the same time being very gory with it. Because sometimes some not necessarily anime, but some series find that to be the appeal, and some are just trying to be different, so they just do that. Well, Berserk succeeds by doing that. It does that, and it achieves being different, while at the same time it's still a good series. Because some things are okay, let's have nudity, let's have a scene where someone gets raped, and yada yada yada. While at the same time, it's okay, doesn't mean the series is still good. But Berserk is good, and Berserk was kind of the first one to truly do it and be good at the same time. That's what I appreciate about Berserk, and that's what struck to me as a masterpiece.
I see. So, actually, I just, based off of what you just said, I came up with another question just that quick. So, based off of what you said, and it's interesting how you said it, it almost sounds as if what you're saying is the sexual acts.
Mm-hmm.
There's more meaning to it than just blatant, oh, let's get naked.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Because I've watched a lot of shows where, of course it has meaning to the story, but at the same time, it's just I remember there was this anime last season called Drifters, and then there was a scene where people were getting raped, and it was just they just threw it in there just for the sake of throwing it in there, I feel, and it turned me off from the show, because I'm okay with that and I'm comfortable with that, but I don't want you to have it just for the sake of having it. I want you to have it and incorporate it into your story where it is where it's suitable for the subject matter. I want it to fit in with the material that the show presents, and Berserk does that smoothly.
I agree with that. Especially now that I think about some of the things that I have read when it comes to Berserk. And like, there was a lot of things like when they mentioned, different religions and what they believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you have more of the, like devil-ish, like Lucifer kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like those tactics where like sex is like part of the ritual and things of that nature, and it literally ties in with what's going on. Like it's more of a ritual or religion instead of just, oh yeah, we're just putting it in there to do it. It's like less YOLO. It's not like that. There's more meaning behind it. Even the characters themselves would look at some acts and consider it vulgar, especially when you have interaction between like commoners and aristocrats, pretty much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Perfect.
Do you agree with that?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I'm trying to be as professional as possible.
Well, you're succeeding,
yes.
my friend.
I think I'm loving this. This is so much fun.
Nice.
You know what? This podcast is so much fun. It's so different than what I'm used to. Now, with that said, here is that question that I was talking about that links back to like what shocked you, and pretty much we both agreed to the same thing. And this question is more in regards to a potential issue with Berserk.
Okay.
Do you think because it's easy to answer, but at the same time it can be a little complex too, because this comes down to diversity of opinion. Do you think the amount of nudity and violence, do you think those two elements of Berserk negatively affected the let's say maybe exposure or popularity of Berserk?
That is actually a really good question that I haven't thought about extensively. If I was to answer off the fly, I think I would say yes in some sense, because a majority of people aren't like, at least to my knowledge, I don't think a majority of people are okay with that kind of suggestive matter. But like, that's just the whole point of Berserk, is that it's different. People are gonna like it because it's different, but that's only gonna be people that like different things, You're still gonna have the people that like Naruto and Dragon Ball, and just because they like that doesn't mean that Berserk is sitting there and it's like, hey, we have rape and violence, why don't you come read us? Like, it's like, no. Like, they're gonna, it's different, and people don't read things just because it's different sometimes. Same with One Piece, and same with almost everything, man. Everything, even Dragon Ball. If you don't like anime and you just look at Dragon Ball, you're like, that's different. I'm watching Pretty Little Liars on ABC. Like, it's, something's different. It's always going to be different. It's going to be presented towards a specific audience, and the specific audience for Berserk are people that are comfortable with that type of suggestive subject matter. So I feel as if Berserk's goal has been achieved. Its goal was to be a good series for people that appreciate that type of suggestive content, and I feel like Berserk is just good when it comes to that. It's not trying to be the next Dragon Ball or the next Naruto or something along those lines, while at the same time it's so different and it's so good, it's low-key along those lines. But that is my opinion when it comes to that.
Okay. Oh, nice. Okay, so let me give you another question about this. Is kind of along the same, this is kind of similar to the previous question in a way. Do you think, because here's what I think about this whole thing, like, it depends, like you said, it kind of like depends on the individual.
Okay.
But then also I feel like, if I was to look at the West, and then I would look at, let's say, Japan or something like that.
Right.
I feel like Japan will make the imagery in Berserk less of an issue. Do you think that is true?
Well, when you say Japan will make it less of an issue, what do you necessarily mean by that? Like the way they advertise it, or like the way people appreciate it in Japan? Like they don't really care about it as much as we do over here? Because I'm
good question. I mean more like maybe like they would look at it differently based on their values.
Okay.
Let's say morality, for example. Maybe not even morality. That sounds a bit too strong. I would say based on their cultural values.
Yeah. I would say that like Berserk is more appreciated there than it is here, obviously. I feel like people are more comfortable with that kind of content over there. I feel like anime is already weird enough, and they have like, not trying to be weird, not trying to be mean or anything, but they have like a whole category for that kind of content. So Berserk being a good series and not being in that category technically is good enough. Like it's good for them and they appreciate it. And over here it's like, oh, sex and violence, oh god, can't let my kids watch that. I feel like it's more it's over here it's less accepted than it is over there. So to answer your question, I feel like Japanese people accept Berserk more, and they appreciate that franchise more and stuff like that more than we do over here.
Yeah, I could see that. Because, see, my thing is I feel like religion is that thing that kind of like negatively impacts whether, it just impacts whether someone's literally going to watch it or not. And it's kind of like black and white. They're either going to like it or they're not going.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like against the standard Christian beliefs and just like regular religion anyways. It's just like a lot of sex, a lot of violence, demons and rape and everything. So especially people of religious standpoints, they probably would be offended by it. So
now that you bring that up, here's the weird thing, because see, I am a Christian, and I understand this completely. I do believe in God.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to content, it's like it is so strange. It's like I'm that type of mug where I look at what's going on around me, and it's like I would be really stupid to say or read stuff like that in the presence of another person, because they're going to see it differently, and it kind of stresses you out. But at the same time, when it comes to me, I still appreciate content for what it is, as long as I don't do crazy stuff that I read.
Well, yeah, there is just like, I mean, when I say that, I don't mean everyone, because usually people that, even if they're of religion and they believe in that, they're not necessarily alienating like a show or specific like things. Like they just, like, some people do that though, people that are strong within that, and that's what I'm talking about when I say that. Like people that are like strong Christians might be like, oh, Berserk is evil, who would make this is awful. And people like, it's just that's also something that appeals to me, the fact that Berserk, like, it purposely does that. It purposely like comes to fruition without trying to present itself towards that audience, and that's what I appreciate of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying, Ali. I'm not saying that you're trying to generalize. I'm definitely not saying that. I'm just saying that based on my experiences, because like this kind of piggybacks off of like why some people do YouTube and why some people can interact better with people over the internet, because they have more of a common ground. It's like when you talk about anime, to people that in real life, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy. But then you feel safe, when you talk about that sort of thing over the internet, because everyone, appreciates the same things that you do. and this is kind of like, and this is kind of like this discussion about Berserk right now. It's kind of like that same thing. It's just a little different because now religion's involved.
Right. Yeah.
It depends on the strength of the other person's beliefs. It even reminds. Oh my God! See, that's a spoiler, so I can't talk about that. Because I would just say this, okay, guys? The religion, the strength of one's religion is going to negate something that I would not spoil. Am I on the right track, Ali?
Yeah, somewhat. I'm not 100% sure what you're talking about, but I think I get your drift.
You think okay. We're just gonna leave it at that.
Hey man,
that'd be something cool
to talk about in the next video when we do talk about spoilers.
Oh yes, that's most definitely. Now I'm trying to get back on track because we talked about a lot of stuff here. How about this? Now we already there was this one question that I had, but I feel like we already answered it. Like, what makes Berserk a unique manga series? I think we kind of like already covered that based on the things that we discussed, as well as what makes it stand out, so I don't even have to ask that question.
Right.
I'm trying to think of a question here, just like, better yet, I've asked a lot of questions. Is there anything that you think we left out as far as why Berserk is good, things that we shouldn't sleep on when it comes to Berserk? You have anything to add?
Not really. I feel as if we did cover everything. Basically, it's really just how we got into Berserk, how other people can get into Berserk. Personally, if you really want to get into Berserk, like truthfully want to indulge in the story, I recommend you read the manga. You can watch the anime if you're like totally against reading the manga, but the recent anime is quite disappointing, and I don't really want anyone who's just getting into Berserk to get into it that way. So, number one recommendation, read the manga, watch the anime after you read the manga. If you want to watch any anime and you refuse to read the manga, watch the 1997 anime. You can find it like anywhere. It's really nowhere illegally because it's so old and there's no licensing on it. You can watch the 3 movies. They're really, really good, and they cover the Golden Age arc, which is the first official arc of Berserk, which is the same arc that the anime from the 1997 version covers, so that's also good. If there's anything else I didn't cover, I think we basically went over everything in terms of why people should like Berserk and why people already like Berserk as of now, based on its risk and the reasons it takes to get into like sexuality and violence and not being afraid of alienating certain audiences. That's why I appreciate Berserk so much, and for other reasons that I don't necessarily want to spoil because then I would have to talk about the story itself. So yeah, I think I'm good.
All right, which now I got a bit of a refresher.
Okay.
After listening to what you were saying. There is that one more thing that I want to ask you about, because this is something that I had a discussion with someone about, and is regarding the art style of Berserk. I want you to give like the viewers like your stand on it. How do you feel about the art? What are the things that really stood out for you when reading the manga and looking at what's been drawn on the pages?
Well, Berserk always, like, the art style, it looks different than anything else. In the beginning, I feel like it looks a lot more different than it does now. I feel like now it kind of looks somewhat modernized. You can tell that Miura has improved in his artistic skills than before. Not saying that they were bad before, but I feel like he had somewhat of a more original style, and now he's kind of, gotten into the mainframe of it. People's faces don't exactly look like they did before, because, you read the first chapter, and then you read the chapter now, and, it's like, of course the characters look different, but at the same time, the way he draws them looks different as well. What I really love about it is that Berserk is not necessarily a colored manga, but I feel like it can't be because of the way that he uses the pages, like the way it's so like I don't even know what you call them, like the little squares where the specific pictures are, the way he places them, the way that you read the page and how they're done. They're not just like thrown on there, they're done carefully, and they're executed like with care. It's so like it's so hard for me, like it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's not just the artwork, it's how he writes the manga and the order it's done in and the way the pages look, the artwork when it comes to that. When times when Guts has his cape on and it like flaps over and you can see like all the blood from all the enemies he's killed run, like that the way that looks on pages, it looks so clean and it looks so amazing. Like you read current manga today, it'll sometimes just look like little scribbles, and with Berserk you never really see little scribbles. It reminds me a lot of like a history book or something. I know that's a weird comparison, but it really does. It has so much detail, and you know, like it has a certain art style to it as well. Reminds me of like Attack on Titan, to be honest. Like they're both really different art styles, but like the amount of detail put in to Berserk reminds me of the amount of detail put into like an Attack on Titan manga when like a big battle is happening and there's like just blood being shed all over the place. I feel like Berserk achieves that when it comes to its artwork. Definitely.
Ooh, wow. And you know what? I have to agree. Like, the interesting thing about Berserk, when I read it, and I'm still reading it, by the way, I'm almost done too. I'm almost completely done. Was that they're literally filling up the entire page. It's like they're using all of the space. Yeah. That's one of the craziest things about it. And like you said, the imagery, like with the blood and stuff, it was like, oh, you know it's blood. We're not talking little spurts either. We're talking gallons.
Right.
Like gallons and gallons of blood. And it doesn't even look unrecognizable. Like you see everything clearly. And oh my gosh, like it even blows my mind as to how they even drew all of the like creatures and stuff on the page. It was like, when I read it, I'm like, how long did it take them to draw that one page?
I know. That's what surprises me too.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I'm trying to think, when you said the way they structure the pages, I felt like that was kind of interesting. And it kind of, when you said that kind of called out to me. Because like, sometimes when you read a manga, you don't exactly know which direction you should go. Should you start from the left to the right. Or right to the left? Or do you go up, down, then back up, back down? It's kind of like that. And it's weird with Berserk. Sometimes they would have it where they would split the page into like 3 sections. And all you have to do is kind of like read
those like 3 boxes.
And you start on the right hand side. And then you go down. Then you go back up to the top, go to the middle section, read down, then over to the final box, which would be on the far left, and you go top down. And sometimes they would have a different placement, but it's not confusing, because remember how, I know you know this because you read it before I did, how they would have, sometimes they would just have one big horizontal box that goes across, and you would start there and then work your way down.
They be doing that a lot.
And it was organized. I didn't feel confused. Like sometimes when I read a manga, I don't even know where to start, because it could be like you would think that you would start at the left hand side,
Yeah.
but you should have started to the right. And there's like, and it's almost as if the dialogue literally aligns perfectly together. Like, you know which way to go just based on what they're saying and what's happening.
Yeah, I appreciate the manga very much. I find it very, very advanced when it comes to how it's written.
Yeah, so they did a nice job, and for them to go from the year 1988 all the way up to now, that's crazy.
Well, he does go on a lot of hiatuses, so.
So how many hiatuses are we talking about here? Can you give us an estimate number as to how many he may have taken?
I don't know the exact number, but let's just say it's like Hunter x Hunter on par. Like he's like that. Yeah, ooh, indeed. Ooh. Yeah, that's the scary part about Berserk, because Miura has said himself that he doesn't know how it's gonna end. So it's scary, because like I just want him to, like, I'm just worried that he's gonna die before he finishes, because I'm serious. 'Cause, like, if he doesn't know what it's gonna do, I want him to take all the hiatuses he needs in order to do that. Like, if that's what you need to do in order to make it, because like at this point in time, Berserk is doing so well and the story is still so good. It, like, you know, it might have fallen into like a cliche here and there, but still, nonetheless, like, it's still Berserk and it's still the amazing story that it is. It can still go downhill from here. Like, it's that, like, it can go up or it can go down, but it's so high up that I wouldn't be surprised if it like flopped, and I really don't want it to, because it doesn't have to, and it's doing so well now. There's no point in it stopping its success. So take all the hiatuses you need, Miura. Just keep making Berserk and don't die before you finish.
Oh boy, there we go. Well, he definitely has intentions on finishing it, because he's still alive working on it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's crazy. 2017, and they're keeping it going. How is his health currently? Do you have any idea?
Well, I don't think he takes hiatuses because of his health. It's not the same reason that the Hunter x Hunter guy takes hiatuses. I believe that he just takes hiatuses because he just doesn't know what to do. And if you read the most recent chapter, then you'd understand why he took the hiatus, because it's like a big thing supposed to happen. So he just if I was in his situation, I wouldn't know what to do either. I'd have to sit for a couple months and think about how I'm going to execute it. So I don't really blame him when it comes to that.
I see. So it's more of a strategic break to make sure everything aligns properly.
Yeah.
And that is one of the issues of a long-running series. Like the longer it lasts, the greater the opportunity to botch up the
ending. And I hope that's not the case, because like with his series, nothing's really telling him that it has to go on for long. Like, he kind of controls it, he kind of manages it. It's like he can end it really whenever he feels. Based on what's been happening in recent chapters, I feel like it's just gonna prolong for even more. Like, at this point, he can't just end it on the fly. But I mean, nothing's saying that he has to like have it go on for ages. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see what he does. I'm just hyped for the next chapter.
Whew! Boy, oh boy.
I know, boy, oh boy, indeed.
Let's see. I'm actually excited for it, because like I've been enjoying my daily reading of Berserk.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see how things go down, and I'm rooting for Guts every step of the way. And so I think that will conclude this podcast for Berserk.
Yeah.
And so pretty much the big question that we're answering is, why is Berserk good? Why shouldn't we sleep on it? And I would say we gave you plenty to think about, I would say. Ali, is there anything else you would like to say before I wrap up this video? Or should I say podcast?
Well, before you wrap up, I'll say that if anyone that is caught up with the manga, or if anyone plans to catch up with the manga, just know I'm doing manga reviews once the manga comes back on March 27th. Season 2 of the Berserk 2016 anime comes back April 7th, so I'm also going to be doing reviews and discussions based on that. I cannot wait. Berserk is coming back. It's coming full throttle. I do a lot of Berserk in the Band of the Hawk content when it comes to the actual game itself. I've kind of been slacking recently because I think I'm about finishing up my content regarding that, but nonetheless, I love Berserk. If you love Berserk as well, come swing by my channel. I am Ali G, no spaces at all. A-L-I, not A-L-L-Y, like Austin and Ali. A-L-I, like Muhammad Ali. Yeah, I think that is all I have to say.
Beautiful. And so you heard it from my boy Ali. And so, yo, if you're interested in that Berserk content, I strongly recommend that you check him out because, hey, he knows his stuff. He loves the series. I had so much fun talking about Berserk with my boy Ali. And let me let you know right now, like, a link to his channel will be pinned in the comment section below. So that means there's no excuses for you not to know where that link is located. I feel like that would be more convenient for the viewer. You don't have to look at the description in order to do so. It's right there. So it's like you can slap that comment in there, and then you can also check out his channel at the same time. So with that said, if you guys enjoyed this podcast, remember to do that spit with gusto by doing the following: comment, like, and subscribe. And I hope we see you again next time. Peace.
Deuces.